12 years. 12 agonizing years of silence, of being erased from their lives like I was just a forgotten memory. And then there they were, standing on my doorstep, like ghosts from a past I desperately tried to bury, their faces etched with a desperation they couldn't hide. The door to my new luxurious beach house swung open, revealing Ella Laner, my daughter, and Gregory, her husband. Their smiles were forced, their eyes darting around, greedily sweeping over the Italian leather, the 70-inch television, and the panoramic ocean view that stretched behind me like a living painting of pure freedom. "Mom," Ella Laner murmured, her voice trembling. "We need to talk to you." Talk? The word hit me like a cold wave. For 12 long agonizing years, these two human beings had treated me as if I'd simply ceased to exist. 12 years without a single phone call, not one Christmas invitation, never meeting my own grandchildren. And now that I'd just bought this multi-million-dollar house in cash, they appeared on my doorstep. They'd caught the scent of money, hadn't they? Like vultures circling a fresh kill. I watched them in silence, taking in every painful detail. Gregory tried to peek over my shoulder, his gaze hungry for more of my seaside sanctuary. Ella Laner wore a faded green dress, clearly past its prime, and her synthetic leather shoes had cracks that screamed of hardship. Worry lines furrowed her forehead like dry earth, and her hands trembled as she waited for my response. "Talk?" I repeated, my voice calm, almost unnervingly so. "How interesting." A bitter laugh almost escaped me. "After 12 years of absolute silence, now you want to talk?" The color drained from their faces as if I'd pointed a loaded gun at them. Gregory cleared his throat, adjusting his wrinkled shirt. It was painfully obvious they'd come straight from a battle they'd lost. Their eyes, wide with a naked desperation, screamed their true intentions. During all those years of cruel abandonment, I'd survived by selling my homemade pies and desserts at the town's farmers market. Every Sunday, while they were probably enjoying lavish family gatherings at expensive restaurants, I was standing under the relentless sun, smiling at strangers who appreciated my baking more than my own blood. My hands had grown rough, my back stooped from carrying heavy baskets filled with sweet hopes. But my pride, that never completely broke. The aroma of finely ground cinnamon, pure vanilla extract, toasted coconut, flavors that once filled my home when Ella Laner was little, and called me the best cook in the whole wide world. Those golden days now felt like they belonged to another life, to another woman who naively believed that family love was unconditional and eternal. The transformation had begun so subtly after Ella Laner met Gregory. He was all charm at first, a calculated courtesy. He'd call me his dear mother-in-law, with a smile that never quite reached his eyes, praising my Christmas casseroles while secretly plotting how to distance Ella Laner from my influence. Gradually, I started noticing the changes, seeping into our relationship like a slow poison. When Ella Laner mentioned visiting me, he always had a work emergency. When I called, he'd answer with an annoyed tone, promising Ella Laner would call back. She never did. Messages were mysteriously lost, invitations misplaced, plans canceled at the last minute, for increasingly far-fetched reasons. The exclusion started as accidental oversights that hurt, but which I tried to forgive. Ella Laner's MBA graduation? "Oh, Mom, we thought you already had other, more important plans." The baby shower for her first daughter, my granddaughter whom I never met? It was something very intimate, just her closest friends from college. That same granddaughter's first communion? "We completely forgot to tell you. Everything was so rushed, you know how these things are." Each excuse stabbed my heart like a dagger wrapped in gift paper with golden bows. I would smile, nod, and pretend to understand. "Don't worry, my love. Next time will be different." But next time never came. My phone remained as silent as a tomb in the cemetery where my husband rested. The nights grew longer, the Sundays emptier. I cooked for one, talked to the photographs on the walls, and celebrated my birthdays with a single lonely candle stuck in a small cake from Mr. Peterson's bakery. He always asked about Ella Laner, and I always responded with the same lie. "She's very busy with her new life. You know how it is." By the way, if you're still with me on this roller coaster of a story, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. More raw, unbelievable personal tales like mine are coming your way. I promise you won't want to miss them. But now, standing on the threshold of my dream house, with the ocean whispering secrets behind me and the salty scent of the sea filling my lungs, I saw them for who they truly were. I invited them in with an elegant wave of my hand, watching their eyes widen at the sheer luxury that now surrounded me. The Italian marble floor gleamed, reflecting their small, nervous figures. Eleanor walked behind Gregory like a shadow, head down, while he appraised every piece of furniture, every work of art, every detail of my new reality with the poorly concealed greed of a professional appraiser. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the cream-colored leather sofa that had cost more than they had probably seen together in years. "I suppose after so much time you have a lot to tell me." Gregory cleared his throat, adopting that important man posture he always used to impress. "Annabelle, we know it's been a few years since we've spoken, but 12 years, I interrupted him, my voice firm. "Not a few years. 12 exact years since you decided I didn't exist." Eleanor finally looked up, tears welling in her eyes. But they no longer moved me. I had cried too many nights alone to allow her calculated tears to manipulate me now. "Mom, it wasn't our intention. Things got complicated. Gregory's job. The kids. The kids I never met." I cut in, the rage that had been contained for years beginning to boil. My grandchildren who grew up without knowing they had a grandmother, who would have loved them unconditionally. During those 12 years of forced exile, I had built a routine that kept me sane. Every morning I got up at 5, preparing my desserts with the same dedication I once put into caring for Eleanor when she was a baby. The pie crust required patience, the caramel needed constant attention, and the baking time didn't forgive mistakes. These recipes became my salvation, my livelihood. Sundays at the farmer's market were my only social interaction. Older women like me would buy my sweets, and we'd end up talking about our lives, our absent children, our postponed dreams. Martha, a 72-year-old widow, became my confidant. She, too, had been abandoned by her children after they married. She, too, knew the pain of being invisible to those who were once the center of your universe. "Children think that once they form their own family, we parents no longer matter," Martha would tell me. "But when they need something, oh, then they remember we exist." How prophetic those words had been. Now, watching Eleanor wring her hands nervously while Gregory mentally calculated the value of my new life, I understood perfectly what Martha had meant. The change in Eleanor had been gradual but relentless. In the first years of her marriage she still called, but the conversations grew mechanical, filled with awkward silences. Gregory was always in the background, clearing his throat or making comments that cut our talks like sharp blades. "Your mom always has some drama," I once heard him say, thinking Eleanor had hung up. "My mother never bothers us with her personal problems." That's how Gregory had classified my loneliness, my natural desire to maintain contact, my need to be part of her new family. Everything I felt was reduced to personal problems that disturbed their perfect married life. The family invitations stopped. First Thanksgiving. "This year will be something small, Mom. Just the 4 of us." Then Christmas. "The kids are sick. We'd better postpone it." Then birthdays. Everything got complicated with Gregory's work. Each excuse accompanied by empty promises of a next time that never came. Eleanor developed a special talent for making every rejection sound reasonable, every exclusion feel temporary, every abandonment as if it were for my own good. "We don't want you to feel obligated to come, Mom. You're old enough to rest and enjoy your peace and quiet." My peace and quiet. As if loneliness were a gift I'd asked for. As if waking up every morning in a silent apartment was my idea of happiness. As if cooking for one and eating in front of the television was my definition of a full life. The years passed like pages of a calendar no one read. My routine became so predictable even the mailman knew when I'd be watering plants on my small balcony. But there were also moments of such profound loneliness I thought I would drown. Entire nights awake, staring at a phone that never rang, waiting for a text that never arrived. Christmases with television specials and a small artificial tree I decorated by myself. New Year's Eves with lukewarm sparkling wine, and the renewed hope that maybe this would be the year. The sharpest pain came unexpectedly. Seeing families at the park, Hearing other grandmothers talk about their grandchildren, passing toy stores and wondering what mine would like. Ella had 3 children, whom I only knew from blurry social media photos I checked from fake accounts, like a spy on my own family. Mom, Ella voice brought me back to the present. We know we made mistakes. Mistakes. The word shot from my mouth like a bullet. Erasing your mother from your life for 12 years was a mistake? Denying your children the love of their grandmother was a mistake. Gregory shifted uncomfortably, finally understanding this conversation wasn't going to go his way. His eyes continued to scan my living room, calculating, evaluating, planning his next move like the expert manipulator he had always been. They weren't mistakes, I continued, feeling the truth pour from my throat like hot lava, after years of being contained. They were conscious, calculated, cruel decisions. You chose to erase me from your lives, as if I were an old piece of furniture that was no longer useful. Ella began to sob, but her tears no longer had the power to disarm me. I had cried alone for too many nights, wondering what I'd done wrong, how I'd failed, why my unconditional love hadn't been enough. Mom, please let us explain, she tried between sobs. Explain what? My voice rose. Are you going to explain why I didn't know my granddaughter when she took her first steps? Why I wasn't there when my grandson lost his first tooth? Why I spent 12 Christmases cooking for no one while you built family memories without me? Gregory finally spoke, using that condescending tone he had perfected. Annabelle, we understand that you feel hurt, but families sometimes need space to grow. It was nothing personal against you. The laugh that escaped my throat was so bitter even I was surprised. Nothing personal, Gregory. You turned my daughter into a stranger. You planted poison in her heart against me. You decided that I had no place in the life you were building. I remembered with painful clarity the day Ella delivered her final decision. It was a rainy Tuesday in October exactly 12 years ago. She arrived at my apartment with an expression I'd never seen before. Cold, distant, as if fulfilling an unpleasant obligation. Mom, Gregory and I have been talking, she began, not even accepting the coffee I prepared. We think it's better if you have less contact with us for a while. Less contact? I asked, feeling the world sway. What does that mean? It means you are no longer welcome in our house. It means we no longer want you to call constantly. It means we need space to be a family without external interference. External interference? That's what my own daughter had called me. As if I were a meddling neighbor, a stranger, not her mother, who'd carried her, spent sleepless nights, worked double shifts to pay for her college. Ella, I don't understand what I've done wrong, how I've failed you. My voice broke, but she remained impassive. It's not about what you've done wrong, Mom. It's about what's best for my marriage and my children. Gregory needs to know that I put our nuclear family first before anyone else. Anyone else? That's what I was to my daughter. Anyone else? But Ella, I'm your mother. I'm your children's grandmother. I'm not a stranger who threatens your marriage. Gregory says that mothers-in-law always cause problems in young marriages. He says it's better to establish clear boundaries from the beginning. Gregory says. Gregory thinks. Gregory needs. At some point, my daughter's voice had become an echo of his. Her thoughts replaced by his. Her heart reprogrammed to beat to his rhythm. And what about what you say, Ella? What about what you think? What about your heart? She was silent for a long time, and for a moment I thought the daughter I had raised would return. But when she spoke, her voice was hollow, rehearsed. I think Gregory is right. I think it's for the best for everyone, including you, Mom. You can have your own life without worrying about us. That was the last real conversation we had. After that day, Ella became a ghost who occasionally sent cold, superficial text messages. Hope you're well, Mom. Happy birthday. Happy New Year. Automatic messages without soul, like the ones a company sends its customers. The first few months after that breakup were the darkest of my life. I lost weight, I lost sleep, I lost hope. Every morning, I woke up hoping it was a nightmare. But the phone remained silent. It was Martha who saved me. She appeared at my door one Sunday morning when I had been in bed for 3 days. Annabelle, get up. You have 2 choices. You can stay here dying in life for a daughter who doesn't deserve you. Or you can build a new life that is worthy of you. Her words were harsh, but they had the force of truth. That afternoon, she helped me clean my apartment, organize my recipes, and plan my new dessert business. If you're going to suffer, she told me, do it while you're doing something productive. And so my new life began. Slowly, painfully, but with determination. Every pie I sold was a step toward emotional independence. Every satisfied customer was a small personal victory. Every dollar I earned was proof that I had value, even if my own daughter didn't see it. Sundays at the farmer's market became my weekly therapy. The ladies who bought my desserts became my new, chosen family. We shared stories of ungrateful children, of marriages that divided families, of the loneliness of being a mother in a society that discards you when you are no longer useful. My son tells me I'm too dramatic when I complain he doesn't visit, Joanna told me, trying my mango jello. But it's not drama. It's real pain. It's the basic human need to feel loved and valued by those you brought into the world. Now, sitting in my living room, which cost more than everything Ella and Gregory owned, I remembered every tear, every sleepless night, every lonely birthday. And I saw them there, small and desperate, looking for something from me after having turned their backs on me for more than a decade. So, after 12 years of silence, I said, my voice controlled, what exactly brings you to my door? Gregory and Ella exchanged a meaningful look. He cleared his throat again. Annabelle, the truth is we're going through a very difficult time. A very difficult time. I repeated his words slowly, savoring the irony like bitter honey. What an extraordinary coincidence that you come looking for me just when you have problems, after 12 years of considering my existence irrelevant to your perfect lives. Gregory shifted uncomfortably, clearly preparing the speech he'd rehearsed. The construction company went bankrupt 6 months ago, he finally confessed. We lost all our savings. The house is in foreclosure. Ella had to quit her job to take care of the kids because we can't afford daycare. We're living with my parents, but they have financial problems too. Ella nodded desperately, as if confirming their misfortune would automatically generate my compassion. Mom, the kids ask why they don't have their own room, why Dad is always angry, why Mom cries at night. We don't know what to do. Ah, I said, leaning back in my Italian leather armchair. So now I'm useful. Now I exist. Now I'm part of the family. How convenient. During those 12 years of ostracism, I had developed a special ability to read between the lines, to detect emotional manipulation, to protect myself from people who only approached when they needed something. The ladies at the market had taught me that children often return to their parents when life hits them, not out of genuine love, but out of pure convenience. It's not like that, Mom, Ella protested, her voice breaking. We've always loved you. I've always thought of you. It was just that the circumstances. The circumstances? I interrupted with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Let's talk about circumstances, Ella. When your first son had pneumonia 8 years ago and was hospitalized for a week, where was I? When your second son broke his arm playing soccer 5 years ago, did you call me? When your youngest daughter had problems at school last year, did you think to ask her grandmother for advice? Each question was an arrow aimed at the center of her guilt. Ella paled with each one, knowing the answer was the same. She hadn't thought of me at any difficult moment in their lives. Only now, when they needed money, when their world was crumbling financially, had they remembered they had a mother. We knew you had financial problems, Gregory muttered, trying to justify the unjustifiable. We didn't want to be a burden to you when you could barely support yourself selling desserts. The audacity of his comment left me speechless. Not only had they justified my exclusion because of my poverty, but now they had the nerve to admit it openly, as if it were a valid reason to abandon a loved one. I see, I said with a calmness that surprised me. So, I wasn't good enough for you when I was poor, but now that you know about my new financial situation, I'm suddenly valuable enough to receive a visit. The truth about my economic transformation was something they couldn't imagine. 3 months ago, while preparing pies, I received a call that changed my destiny forever. It was a lawyer informing me of the death of my Aunt Joan, my late father's sister. who had lived in the United States for 50 years without us knowing much about her. Aunt Joan had been the black sheep, the one who left young in search of the American dream and never returned. For decades we only received occasional Christmas postcards. It turned out she had done extraordinarily well. The inheritance included a house in Los Angeles that sold for $1.5 million, bank accounts with another $500,000, and several investments totaling another $2 million. Overnight, I went from counting pennies to buy ingredients to having more money than I had ever dreamed of. But the most important thing wasn't the money. It was the letter Aunt Joan had left specifically for me. In it, she told me how she had followed my life through social media, how she had seen my loneliness, my family's abandonment, my daily struggle. She explained that she had decided to leave me everything because she recognized in me the same strong woman she had been. Someone underestimated and abandoned, but who had never given up. Annabelle, the letter said in the shaky handwriting of a 92-year-old woman, I have seen how your daughter has treated you. I have seen your dignity and loneliness. This money is for you to live your final years as the queen you always were, not as the beggar they wanted you to be. With that inheritance, I bought this house by the sea, a place where I could wake up every morning listening to the waves and breathing fresh air, free from painful memories and toxic people. For the first time in 12 years, I slept in complete peace. Mom! Eleanor tried to approach me, but I raised my hand to stop her. I know we made terrible mistakes. I know we hurt you in unforgivable ways, but we're family. Blood. Blood, I interrupted with a bitter laugh. Eleanor, blood means nothing without respect, without love, without consideration. You turned our family connection into a wet piece of paper that you threw in the trash when it no longer suited you. Gregory leaned forward, adopting a posture of calculated vulnerability. Annabelle, we understand your pain. We understand your anger, but the children are innocent in all of this. They don't deserve to suffer for our mistakes. There it was. The card he'd saved for last. The children, my unknown grandchildren, the most powerful emotional manipulation in their arsenal. He knew that mentioning the little ones could soften my heart, hardened by years of neglect. The children? I asked, a mixture of pain and rage stirring in my chest. The same children who grew up without knowing they had a grandmother who would have loved them unconditionally? The same children who were denied the love, wisdom, and care of their grandmother for all these years. Eleanor began to sob again, but this time her tears seemed genuine, heavy with the weight of real guilt. Mom, we didn't think about the long-term consequences. Gregory said it was better for the marriage, that mothers-in-law always caused problems. Gregory said, I repeated, looking directly at the man who had orchestrated the destruction of my relationship with my daughter. Gregory thought. Gregory decided. And where was your own voice, Eleanor? Where was your own heart? My voice got lost somewhere between the promises of a perfect marriage and the fear of contradicting my husband. Eleanor admitted with an honesty that momentarily disarmed me. But Mom, now I realize everything we lost. The kids ask why they don't have a grandmother, because their friends talk about their grandmothers and they don't know any. Her words were daggers straight to the heart. But I had learned not to let pain cloud my judgment. For 12 years I had fantasized about this moment. Eleanor's return, the acknowledgement of her mistake, the chance to meet my grandchildren. But now that it was happening, I realized it was coming too late, and for all the wrong reasons. Do you know how many of my grandchildren's birthdays I missed, while you were building your perfect family without external interference? I asked, my voice hardening. Do you know how many nights I stayed awake imagining what their voices, their laughs, their personalities would be like? Do you know how many toys I bought and stored in a box, waiting for a day that never came? Gregory shifted nervously, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. His plan of emotional softening wasn't working, and I could see him mentally calculating his next manipulative move. Annabelle, we understand you're hurt, he intervened with that condescending voice. But now we can change all that. The children can meet you. They can spend time with you. We can be a family again. A family, I repeated, savoring the irony. You mean the kind of family where the grandmother is welcome only when she has money to solve the problems of irresponsible adults? The house filled with a tense silence. Through the large windows I could see the ocean waves breaking against the rocks, a constant reminder of my new freedom and my hard-won independence. This place represented everything I had achieved without them, everything I had built from the ashes of my abandonment. During these 3 months living by the sea, I had developed a completely new routine. I woke up each morning to the sound of seagulls, not to the silent cry of loneliness. I prepared my coffee in a kitchen equipped with the best appliances, not in the small space where I used to count every penny for basic ingredients. I walked along the beach at sunset, feeling the sand between my toes and the salty wind in my hair, free from the emotional heaviness I had carried for years. I had also started helping other older women who, like me, had been abandoned by their families. Martha had moved into an apartment near my house, and together we had created a small support group for ladies in similar situations. On Wednesday afternoons, we would gather in my living room to share stories, emotional survival strategies, and of course my homemade desserts. Freedom, Martha had told me, is realizing that you don't need the approval of those who hurt you to be happy. Her words had resonated in my heart like a bell of truth. For the first time in decades, I was living for myself, not waiting for calls that never came, not cooking for children who didn't visit, not dreaming of family reunions that existed only in my imagination. Mom! Eleanor approached the edge of my armchair, her eyes red from crying. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I don't deserve a second chance. But I swear on my children that if you help us now, things will be different. I will be different. Different how? I asked, my voice cold and controlled. Different until you solve your financial problems and don't need me anymore? Different until Gregory decides again that I'm an interference in his perfect marriage. Gregory stood up abruptly, finally showing his true nature. Look, Annabelle, I understand you have resentments, but the reality is that we all make mistakes in families. The important thing is to move on, not to get stuck in the past. His comment was like a slap in the face. After 12 years of deliberate abandonment, he had the audacity to minimize my pain as getting stuck in the past, as if my suffering were a whimsical choice rather than a direct consequence of their cruel actions. Move on. I stood up, feeling all my dignity rise like a steel tower. Gregory, I have already moved on. I built a new life without you. I found peace without your presence. I discovered my worth without your validation. Eleanor covered her face with her hands, sobbing with a desperation that would have broken my heart years ago. But the heart they had known had died slowly over 12 years of indifference, and had been reborn as something stronger, wiser, more selective with its love. You don't understand, do you? I continued, walking toward the window overlooking the ocean. You came here expecting to find the same broken woman you abandoned 12 years ago. You expected to find someone so desperate for family love that she would be willing to pay any price for a few crumbs of affection. The truth was, during the first few years I would have paid any price. I would have mortgaged my soul for a phone call from Eleanor. I would have sold everything for an afternoon with my grandchildren. I would have begged for forgiveness for offenses I never committed just to be part of their lives again. But time and pain had taught me valuable lessons about self-love and personal dignity. The afternoons with Martha and the other ladies had shown me that family abandonment was more common than I thought, and that surviving it was not only possible, but could be the beginning of a more authentic and satisfying life. For years I blamed myself, I confessed, still looking out at the ocean. I thought I had failed as a mother, that I had been too meddlesome, too present, too loving. I tortured myself, looking for the exact moment I lost my daughter. I turned to face them directly. Eleanor seemed genuinely devastated. Gregory, on the other hand, showed impatience and frustration, clearly calculating whether to continue this strategy. But eventually I understood the truth, I continued. I didn't lose my daughter because of something I did wrong. I lost her because she chose a man who considered having a present mother-in-law a threat to his fragile masculinity. I lost her because she valued her husband's approval more than her mother's love. Eleanor stood up, swaying as if my words were physical blows. Mom, it's not like that. I never stopped loving you. I just got confused. Gregory made me believe it was for the best for everyone. Gregory manipulated you. I corrected her. But you allowed him to do it. You chose to believe his lies because they were more comfortable than defending your mother. You preferred the artificial peace of a controlling marriage over the discomfort of setting healthy boundaries with your husband. The silence was deafening. I could hear the ticking of the wall clock, the distant sound of the waves, Eleanor's agitated breathing. Gregory had adopted that rigid posture he used when cornered. So what do you want from us? Gregory finally asked, abandoning any pretense of remorse. Do you want us to grovel? Do you want to humiliate us as revenge for the past? His question revealed everything. It wasn't about repairing emotional damage. It was a transaction. I don't want your humiliation, Gregory, I replied with a serenity that surprised me. What I want is something you probably can't give. Genuine respect, unconditional love, and the acknowledgement that you spent 12 years treating me like I was garbage. Eleanor rose from the sofa with trembling movements, hands extended. Mom, I can give you that. I do recognize all the harm we did to you. I've spent these last few months awake at night, remembering every cruel moment, every call I didn't return, every invitation I never sent. These last few months? I interrupted, noticing the specificity. What happened exactly 3 months ago that made you remember you had an abandoned mother? The color drained from her face. Gregory shot her a warning look, but it was too late. I detected the inconsistency. Eleanor stammered. You found out about my inheritance. I completed the sentence, feeling all the pieces fall into place. Someone told you about my new house, about my new financial situation. That's why you're here. Not for love, not for genuine remorse, but because you discovered that the mother you abandoned now has money. Gregory tried to take control again, but his mask had cracked completely. Annabelle, that's not true. Of course, we heard about your good fortune, and we're glad to know you're well, but we came. Why did you come? I finished for him, cold as ice. Because you're broke. You came because you desperately need money, and I am your last resort. You came because you calculated that 12 years of abandonment could be forgiven with a few well-acted tears and empty promises of reconciliation. The truth about how they knew had come to me the week before through Martha. Her niece worked at the bank where my inheritance transfer had been handled, and had overheard conversations about the lady who sold pies and now had millions. Gossip travels fast. It was Mr. Peterson who told half the town, Martha explained. He said Eleanor and Gregory had been asking around about me. That information had been like a vaccine against any romantic hope I might have harbored. When I saw them appear, I already knew exactly why they were there. Mom, yes, we found out about your inheritance, Eleanor finally admitted, tears streaming. But that doesn't mean we're here just for the money. We're here because we realized we made the biggest mistake of our lives. You realize now? I asked, walking to the kitchen for a glass of water. You didn't realize during the 12 years I spent crying over your absence. You didn't realize when I spent 3 consecutive Christmases in the hospital with pneumonia, because loneliness had weakened my immune system. You didn't realize when I had to sell my wedding jewelry to pay for medication. Each revelation was a bomb. Eleanor knew nothing about my illnesses, my financial crisis, the nights I had considered it would be easier to simply not wake up. To her, I had existed in a time bubble, frozen at the moment of her departure. We didn't know, Eleanor murmured, her excuse hollow. You didn't know because you never asked, I corrected her. For 12 years you could have picked up the phone just once to find out how your mother was. You could have sent a text asking if I needed anything. You could have stopped by my apartment to check if I was still alive. Gregory stood up abruptly, clearly frustrated. All right, Annabelle, we get it. You're angry. But we're here now. We're here asking for forgiveness, wanting to fix things. Doesn't that count for something? His question revealed the depth of his misunderstanding. For him, forgiveness was something that could be obtained by simply showing up and apologizing. As if 12 years of emotional abandonment could be erased with one uncomfortable conversation. What counts, Gregory? I said, walking to the backyard window where red roses bloomed beautifully. Those roses represented my rebirth, my ability to create beauty, even after being cruelly pruned. What counts is the moment you decided to come. You didn't come when I needed you. You came when you need me. For all these years, I continued without turning. I developed a very simple philosophy about human relationships. People show you who they really are through their actions, not their words. You showed me that I had no value in your lives when things were going well. Eleanor came up behind me. Mom, we were young, stupid, influenced by wrong ideas about marriage and family. But we've grown up. We've matured. You've gone broke. I corrected her without turning. You haven't matured. You've gone broke, and now that you need financial help, you suddenly remember you have a mother. The silence was broken by my phone ringing. It was Martha, probably calling for our weekly gardening session. I let it go to voicemail. Her call reminded me of something important. I had a full and satisfying life without them. I had genuine friendships, purpose, peace of mind. I didn't need validation from people who had treated me like a disposable object. Do you know what the most painful moment of all these years was? I asked, finally turning to face them. It wasn't when you stopped inviting me to celebrations. It wasn't when you stopped calling. It was when I realized that I loved you unconditionally. But your love for me had conditions that you never clearly explained. Eleanor began to sob again. Mom, I love you. I've always loved you. It's just that I let others convince me that that love was problematic for my marriage. And now that your marriage is in a financial crisis, I observed, suddenly that love is no longer problematic. How convenient. Gregory had remained silent, but I could see his mind working. He finally spoke, adopting a more direct, less manipulative tone. Look, Annabelle, let's be honest here. We need $100,000 to save the house and start over. We know you have money. We know we're family even if we've had problems. Isn't it natural for family to help each other in difficult times? His brutal honesty was almost refreshing. It's interesting that you mentioned the concept of family helping each other. I replied with a smile that was anything but warm. Where was that family philosophy when I was working 14-hour days selling desserts to survive? Where was that family solidarity when I had to choose between buying medicine or food? I paused, letting my words sink in. Do you know what's the most pathetic thing about all this? I continued, feeling years of contained pain transform into a crystalline clarity that cut like a scalpel. That if you had come a year ago, when I was still living in that tiny apartment, when I was still counting coins, I probably would have welcomed you with open arms. I would have cried with joy. I would have forgiven everything without conditions. I would have cooked for you until I dropped from exhaustion. Eleanor covered her face, her sobs accompanied by a body tremor. Gregory, on the other hand, adopted a tense posture, like a cornered animal evaluating its escape options. But the money gave me something I never had during those 12 years of abandonment. I went on, walking slowly through my living room like a judge delivering a sentence. It gave me perspective. It gave me the freedom to choose who deserves to be in my life and who doesn't. It gave me the power to say no without fear of the consequences. During my first few weeks in this house, I had reflected on this exact possibility. Martha had been my counselor. Money doesn't change who you are inside, she'd said. But it does change how others see you and how you see yourself. The question is, are you going to use that new perspective to be wiser, or to make the same emotional mistakes of the past? Her words were prophetic. Facing this exact scenario, I realized the money had changed me. Not by making me more generous with those who hurt me, but by making me more selective with who deserved my time and emotional energy. Mom, Eleanor tried to approach again. I understand your anger. I understand your pain. But don't you think everyone deserves a second chance? Don't you think family love can overcome any past mistake? A second chance? I repeated, savoring the irony. Eleanor, you had thousands of opportunities over 12 years to rectify your mistake. Every day you woke up was an opportunity to call your mother. Every birthday, every Christmas, every Mother's Day was an opportunity to remember that you had a family that loved you unconditionally. Gregory shifted restlessly. The difference between a second chance and a 100th chance, I continued, is that second chances are given out of love. 100th chances are given out of desperation. You are not here for love. You are here for financial desperation. Eleanor slumped onto the sofa. You're right, she murmured in a broken voice. You're absolutely right. We are terrible hypocrites. We are selfish. We are everything you say we are. Her admission of guilt might have been moving if it hadn't been accompanied by the obvious expectation that acknowledging her mistakes would automatically result in my forgiveness, and more importantly, my financial help. Acknowledging your mistakes is only the first step, Ella, I explained with the patience of a teacher. The second step is accepting the consequences of those mistakes. And the consequences of abandoning your mother for 12 years don't disappear just because you need money now. I went to the kitchen and started making coffee, needing a moment to process the surrealism. While it brewed, I heard urgent whispers between them. They were recalibrating their approach, looking for new angles of manipulation. I returned with a tray, holding a single cup of coffee. I sat in my favorite armchair, observing them like a scientist. "Aren't you going to offer us coffee?" Gregory asked, irritated. "No," I replied simply. "This is not a social visit. This is a negotiation, and in negotiations, hospitality implies equal positions. We are not in equal positions." Ella seemed genuinely hurt. Gregory, however, showed an expression of reluctant respect, as if he were finally understanding the woman in front of him wasn't the one they'd abandoned. "All right," Gregory said, adopting a more direct tone. "Let's talk clearly. We need $100,000 to save the house and start over. We know you have money. We know we're family. What do you need to hear to help us?" His question was so transactional, so devoid of emotion, it almost made me laugh. "What I need to hear," I replied after a long sip of coffee, "is the truth about why you really excluded me from your lives. Not sugar-coated versions about youthful mistakes or external influences. The real truth." Ella and Gregory exchanged glances. They had prepared several versions of their story, but none included the brutal honesty I was demanding. "The truth," Ella murmured, "is that Gregory convinced me that you were problematic for our marriage." "Problematic how?" I pressed, not allowing euphemisms. Gregory took the floor. "I thought you were too present, too opinionated. I thought you interfered in our decisions as a couple." "Interfered how?" I continued to press, determined to extract the whole truth. "You always had suggestions on how to raise the kids, on how to handle money, on where to live," Gregory admitted, with an honesty that probably cost him physically. "And Ella always listened to you. She always considered your opinion before mine." There it was. The naked truth. Gregory had seen my maternal influence as a threat to his total control over Ella. He couldn't tolerate the idea of his wife having a source of wisdom and support independent of him. "So, you eliminated me because I represented an alternative voice in Ella's life?" I summarized. "You eliminated me because my unconditional love for my daughter threatened your need to be her sole source of validation and direction." The silence confirmed my analysis. Ella finally lifted her head, her eyes red, but with an expression of belated understanding. "Mom, now I understand that Gregory is wrong. I understand that I need your voice in my life. I understand that I made the biggest mistake of my existence by choosing to please him over honoring our relationship." Her words sounded genuine, but they came 12 years too late and in the wrong context. It was easy to recognize mistakes when the consequences of those mistakes were destroying you financially. "You understand now that you need my voice in your life," I repeated her words slowly. "But you specifically need my voice to say yes to a loan of $100,000. Ella flinched at the surgical precision of my observation. Gregory, on the contrary, seemed irritated by my refusal to accept the narrative of repentance they had so carefully constructed. "Annabelle, enough with the psychological games." He finally exploded, showing his true personality for the first time that afternoon. "We get it, you're angry. We get it. We made mistakes, but we're here now asking for help, willing to make amends. What more do you want?" His outburst was exactly what I had been waiting for. The moment the mask of vulnerability would fall completely and reveal the controlling, manipulative man he had always been. The same man who had convinced Ella that a mother's love was a threat to her marriage. "What I want, Gregory, is something you will never be able to give me," I replied with a calm that contrasted dramatically with his agitation. "I want 12 years of my life back. I want to have known my grandchildren since they were babies. I want to have been present for their first steps, their first words, their first days of school. I got up from my armchair and walked to a bookshelf where I kept the few family photographs I had saved from my previous life. I took one in particular, Eleanor at 5 years old, smiling with no front teeth, hugging my leg with pure adoration in her eyes. "This little girl loved me unconditionally," I said, showing them the photograph. "This little girl called me her best friend. Her hero, her favorite person in the whole world. What happened to this little girl, Eleanor?" Eleanor looked at the photograph with an expression of such intense pain that for a moment I thought she would faint. That little girl grew up and became a weak woman who allowed an insecure man to destroy the most valuable thing she had in her life. Her answer surprised me with its brutal honesty. It was the first time all afternoon that she had shown a real understanding of the magnitude of what she had lost, not just what she needed to recover to solve her current problems. "Exactly," I confirmed, returning the photograph to its place. "And now that weak woman comes looking for the mother she abandoned, not because she has found her strength and her independent voice, but because she needs money." Gregory stood up abruptly, clearly frustrated with the direction of the conversation. "You know what, Annabelle? Maybe you were right from the beginning. Maybe you are too dramatic, too complicated. Maybe it was for the best that we got away from all this emotional drama." His words were like an unexpected gift. After hours of masks and manipulation, he had finally shown his true nature, confirming everything I had suspected about him for years. "There he is," I said, smiling genuinely for the first time all afternoon. "There is the real man. The man who convinced Eleanor that maternal love was emotional drama. The man who couldn't tolerate his wife having an independent source of support." Eleanor looked at Gregory with a growing expression of horror, as if she were finally seeing something that had been in front of her for years, but that she had refused to acknowledge. "Gregory," she murmured in a trembling voice, "did you really just call my mother's legitimate pain drama? Did you really just confirm that you manipulated me to push her away?" "Eleanor, don't let her confuse you with her mind games," Gregory insisted. But his voice had lost all authority. "We need that money. We need to save our family." "Our family," I repeated, walking toward the front door, "was destroyed 12 years ago when you decided that a loving mother-in-law was more dangerous than emotional bankruptcy. Now you are reaping what you sowed." Eleanor stood up, staggering, following me to the door with uncertain steps. "Mom, please. I swear if you help us now, everything will be different. I will be different. I will set boundaries with Gregory. I will defend our relationship." "Eleanor," I said, placing my hand on the doorknob, "you are promising to be different under extreme financial pressure. You are promising changes you haven't managed to make in 12 years of marriage. Why should I believe that this crisis will magically turn you into better people?" Gregory approached, adopting a more aggressive stance. "Annabelle, you're going to regret this decision. We're going to tell the whole town how you abandoned your own family in their time of need. We're going to make sure everyone knows what kind of mother you really are." His threat was so predictable, it almost made me laugh. It was the last desperate card of a manipulator who had lost all his power. The threat of destroying my social reputation. "Gregory," I replied with a calm that visibly disarmed him, "the town already knows exactly what kind of mother I am. They know that for 12 years I worked to the point of exhaustion selling desserts to survive. They know I never spoke ill of you despite your abandonment. They know I maintained my dignity even in poverty." I opened the door wide, feeling the sea breeze fill my home with fresh, purifying air. "What they are going to discover now is what kind of children and son-in-law you are. They are going to discover how you treated a loving mother for 12 years, and how you only showed up at her door when you needed money." Eleanor stopped at the threshold, turning to look at me one last time. In her eyes I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Respect. Respect mixed with pain, with regret, with a belated understanding of what she had lost. "Mom," she murmured, "I hope one day you can forgive us. I hope one day we can find a way to heal all this damage." "Eleanor," I replied with a sadness that spanned decades of pain, "forgiveness is not about forgetting the past. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of resentment. I have already freed myself. What you need is not my forgiveness. It's to learn to live with the consequences of your decisions." Gregory left first, clearly furious and defeated. Eleanor followed him slowly, turning back several times as if she wanted to say something more, but the words never came. I watched them walk to their old battered car, their small insignificant figures against the backdrop of the infinite ocean. After 12 years they had finally left my life in the same way they had entered it, seeking something for themselves without offering anything genuine in return. I closed the door gently and returned to my living room where the silence felt like a blessing. There were no shouts, no manipulation, no emotional drama, just peace. I poured myself a glass of white wine that I had been saving for a special occasion and went out to my terrace. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that reflected on the calm waves. My phone rang. It was Martha. "How did it go with the unexpected visitors?" she asked with the wisdom of someone who had been through similar experiences. "Exactly as we expected," I replied, taking a sip of wine and feeling peace settle into my bones. "They came for money, not for love. They confirmed everything we already knew about them." "And how do you feel?" I reflected on her question as I watched a seagull glide gracefully over the waves. "I feel free, Martha. I feel completely, absolutely free." That night after the call with Martha, I walked along the beach under the stars, the cool sand between my toes, the rhythmic sound of the waves, the vastness of the ocean stretching to the horizon. Everything reminded me that I had chosen a life of peace over a life of toxic family complications. In the following days, the news of Eleanor and Gregory's visit spread through the town as I had predicted, but the reactions were the exact opposite of what Gregory had expected. The ladies at the market expressed their support, many sharing similar stories of children who only appeared when they needed money. "You did the right thing, Annabelle," Mr. Peterson from the bakery told me when I went to buy bread a week later. "A mother who respects herself teaches her children to respect her, too." 2 months later, I received a text message from Eleanor. It was simple, without manipulation, without requests. "Mom, I'm in therapy. I'm learning about toxic relationships and healthy boundaries. I hope that one day when I'm truly ready to be the daughter you deserve, you might consider getting to know me again. I love you." I didn't reply immediately. Instead, I saved the message and continued with my new life, my mornings of gardening, my afternoons helping other older women, my evenings in contemplative solitude. Maybe one day Eleanor would truly find her independent voice. Maybe one day she would learn to set healthy boundaries with Gregory. Maybe one day we could build a relationship based on mutual respect instead of desperate need. But until that day, if it ever came, I would continue to live my full and dignified life, surrounded by the infinite ocean, which reminded me daily that some currents are too strong to be changed, and that wisdom lies in learning to navigate calmer waters. The money had given me many things, but the most valuable was not the house or the luxuries. It was the ability to choose who deserved my time, my energy, and my love. And I had chosen wisely. What about you? Have you ever been through something like this? What would you have done in my place? I'd really love to hear your thoughts, so drop them in the comments below. I'm always curious to know what you think. Oh, and let me know where you've heard this story. It's fascinating to see how far it travels. If you want to hear more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many more waiting for you. Big hugs, and I'll see you next time.